Welcome to Iowa City's Other News on Public Access Television. I'm your host, Greg Thompson. Today we'll be talking about the Iowa City Bike Trail System. Iowa City Other News is where we use the medium of television and the facilities of public access TV to give you a progressive slant on the news and from a social justice viewpoint. Today my guest is Terry Doms, a bicycle commuter. You may have read about him in the Cedar Rapids Gazette a couple weeks ago. And he was kind enough to come in today. We're going to talk about the trails, about commuting, biking for exercise. We even brought a real bike in here just to add to the scene. And Terry's got some great graphics. And anyway, thanks Terry for coming in. And you're a bicycle commuter. You commute to and from work. Is that correct?
That's correct, Greg. It's my pleasure to be here. And this opportunity to talk about trails in Iowa City and where we are and where we've come from. And actually, I have some plans here of where we'd like to go. So,
great. Now, you were instrumental in bringing about the Iowa River Corridor Trail System. Tell us how that got started.
It started a long time ago. And it started with me from some vacations in Wisconsin. And maybe you've heard of the Sparta Elroy Trail up there with the 3 tunnels, the one that's about a mile long.
An old railroad bed, is that right?
That's correct. A converted railroad right-of-way. I experienced that trail up there and some others and came back to Iowa City. This would be in the mid-'80s, okay? Wondering where the trails are in Iowa City. And they really didn't exist at all.
Right.
Hardly even any wide sidewalks, unless you want to count what's in the University of Iowa campus. So that started a process of trying to get something going, be an advocate for trails. And what I discovered was no one was really doing that at all. And so I sort of made the circuit with Bicyclists of Iowa City and other groups, and no one was really promoting trails. So now we're to about 1988, and we started to have some informal meetings. And I was introduced to Casey Cook through Melody Rockwell, who worked through the city planning. She's retired now. And that led to the formation of FIRST. And FIRST is an acronym standing for Friends of the Iowa River Scenic Trail. And that first meeting was in about 1990. In 1993, we were incorporated as a nonprofit, 501c3 status. That was sort of important to get contributions that were deductible.
And you started raising contributions?
Right.
And actually had a budget. Yeah.
Well, not a budget so much. I guess one of the first things that we discovered was that it was expensive to develop trails. And there probably was no way that we would ever be able to raise funds sufficient enough to construct any trail. So we had to understand our role, and our role was to advocate, come up with concept plans for trails in Iowa City, and then encourage that. And you do that by attending an enormous number of meetings, okay?
Like city council meetings?
City councils, Parks and Rec, riverfront and natural areas, you know, the list just goes on and on. Board of Supervisors, okay?
How did you find those bodies to be, did they receive your replies well? I mean, were they resistant, or were they cooperative?
Not really. And I think a couple things had to happen. To encourage trails, first of all, I think you need an advocacy group, and that's the role that FIRST filled, okay? You need political support, and it took a long time to get that political support. In fact, about 10 years.
By lobbying or direct lobbying, or how did you build that?
It sort of goes back to being a presence, okay, and getting your name out there, and being vocal at meetings, bringing forth the plans, things like that.
Uh-huh.
One of the, well, we did it several years. We had what we called the annual bike and hike, and this is an example. This is a collector's item now, but we gave out these T-shirts.
Third annual first.
Yeah,
Bike
so
and hike.
it's sort
Cool.
of a pun.
Yeah.
So there's your very own T-shirt.
All
Wear it
right.
proudly.
Thank you.
But what
great.
that did was get our name out. So it's a walking sort of billboard
Yeah, first, all right.
with our logo there.
And on the back, your sponsor?
With sponsors, right.
Okay, cool. Thank you, I'll wear it proudly.
But what I was saying is we needed political support, but actually I think we were probably about 10 years early with this whole concept of trails. It just wasn't in vogue, it wasn't in favor, people didn't understand what they were and why you should have them.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, now we had the organization, we started to get political support, and then through that, the funds started to come. As I recall, the first little segment constructed was about 1,100 feet between Iowa and Burlington. And there used to be sort of a sand trail along there.
Right along the river?
Right along Highway 6, Riverside.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sort of across from Hillcrest Dorm.
Oh, all
Okay.
right, I know what you mean.
All right.
That segment
So they,
there,
right,
yeah.
they paved that.
Uh-huh,
And then that led to, it just sort of expanded from there. Currently, the city spends about $1 million a year in trail construction. And that's been going on now for several years. And today in Iowa City, I asked John Yap, and as near as we could determine between the two of us, there's about 30 miles of trail. And that does not include wide sidewalks
mm-hmm,
or paved shoulders, like out Prairie du Chien.
okay,
Wide sidewalk, the best example of that you may know about is Scott Boulevard.
right. I
Okay.
work on Scott Boulevard
All
at ACT, so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's nice.
Right. And then gradually some things started to change, and now when a new arterial street is put in, they put a wide sidewalk on one side, okay, which of course
Great.
can suffice as a trail.
Right, like up along the Scott Boulevard extension that goes up to ACT.
Correct.
Right, a nice wide
Correct.
sidewalk.
Right.
And some challenging hills.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
These trails and wide sidewalks, I guess when I started, because I was a bicyclist, that's how I tended to think. You know, this is for bicycles. But now I try very hard to always refer to them as multi-purpose, and indeed they are.
Mhm.
I mean, when we started, rollerblading wasn't even,
right,
you know, very few rollerbladers.
yeah.
And then walking started to take off. And of course, these sidewalks and trails are wonderful for runners, okay?
Yeah.
It gets them off the streets.
Definitely.
So they're safer on the
See all
trails or
kinds of
sidewalks. Right,
Families out there, little kids.
Correct.
Athletes,
right.
non-athletes like me.
That's one reason I guess I like trails, is because you can take your family out on the trails, okay?
Yeah,
If you have young riders, or you're just starting to get into bicycling, you're not all that comfortable. So,
yes.
you know, young riders tend to wobble and weave, and
Mhm.
Older men and women who aren't as strong tend to go slower, aren't as comfortable on a bike, so the place for them is on a trail.
Yeah,
And so that's why they work so well.
great. We have an interview of a young woman that we talked to along the Iowa River Corridor Trail, I believe right behind Dairy Queen on Riverside
Oh,
Drive.
sure. Mhm.
Why don't we run that? Are we ready to run that, Adam? Not quite. Okay, not quite. We'll give him another minute. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, one of the things that FIRST did at some of those very early meetings was come up with a mission statement. And our mission statement or goal was to have a continuous trail from Napoleon Park to the Coralville Res. And today that pretty much exists. So this segment, I guess, that you're referring to is on part of that trail there that was put in. And that was sort of difficult because there wasn't much room there, so they had to put in some pretty steep retaining walls to support that trail.
Right, I've seen that.
And it was sort of expensive then, too. But it's heavily used. That's the thoroughfare, pretty much.
Definitely.
North and south.
Did
And
they-
now that goes all the way to the reservoir.
Was that land condemned from private owners then to obtain that trail? I talked to John Yap yesterday also on the phone. He said, like, the section next to Napoleon Park, some of the land was obtained from Metro Pavers and some other private landowners through a process he called a friendly condemnation, where it's not exactly that the private owner doesn't want to get rid of the land, but by having it be a condemnation, they gain certain tax advantages. Is that correct?
There was a portion condemned down there. Hopefully we can look back on it now as being friendly. I don't remember it as being so friendly at the time, but
Interesting.
But it got done.
Yeah.
And so that allowed access to Napoleon Park.
Uh-huh.
That was a critical little segment there to be able to get through.
It's a complicated issue, isn't it, when you have to do that? I know the new trail on the South Sycamore Trail that goes down to the new soccer fields.
Right.
I thought the city was showing some good foresight in there, putting the trail in before the development is there, and also using the water retention system as the place for the trail, since it's public land.
I've got a concept plan of that I could put up here.
Let's talk about that.
Do you want to do that now, or?
Let's save that for a little
Okay,
bit.
all right, fine.
Are we ready to roll the interview now? This is an interview that Stephen Cantor and Teresa Seeberger and I did a couple weeks ago on Riverside Drive, right behind the Dairy Queen.
How often do you come on this bike path?
Every day I ride to work on this bike path. So.
Where do you ride to work? Where from and where to?
From near the Sycamore Mall and to the university.
And are you heading home right now from the university?
Yep, I'm heading home.
And mostly on the trails?
Yeah, almost exclusively on the trail. Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
At least a year.
How long have you been in Iowa City?
I've been in Iowa City for 3 years, but I didn't know about this trail before. I don't know if it was there, the one that goes, it was extended all the way near Highway 6, and so ever since that's been there, I've been riding it all the time.
What's the name of the trail you're on?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's the Iowa City River Corridor
The
Trail.
River Corridor Trail. That's right, River Corridor Trail.
And so, right now we're by the Dairy Queen, and take us along the trip, if you will, up to your workplace where you go and some of the things you see along the way.
So I ride down from Hollywood Street, which is like all the way near like where the Kmart is on Highway 6. And so I ride along Highway 6 all the way down, and then I cross over the river and go along the river all the way back to the university, actually.
And so you don't have to run into virtually any cars along the way.
No, almost none. A little bit when I'm running along Highway 6, but as long as I'm off that, there's no cars at all, so it's great.
And what do your coworkers think of your bicycling?
They think I'm pretty good for biking to work every day, and I bike almost year-round. Like, unless there's no snow, I bike, so.
And your parents, they think you're a little crazy doing all this stuff?
No, they think it's pretty cool that I'm staying in shape and riding to work every day, so.
And final question, Dairy Queen, is this final reward for your biking?
Sometimes it is.
What flavor do you get?
I get the Blizzard.
The Blizzard? Which flavor Blizzard?
The strawberry cheesecake one.
Sounds very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for stopping in.
Did we get your name? Did we get your
At
name?
the very beginning.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. We're back. This is Greg Thompson for Iowa City's Other News. We're talking about Iowa City Trail System today with our guest Terry Doms. And, I think it's a great tribute to you and your group that this young woman is able to commute to work, and it's really mainly because of your efforts, and thanks a lot.
Well, with all due modesty, I don't think that the trail system would exist as it does today if it hadn't been for FIRST and our advocacy and the concept plans that we came up with.
Yeah, that's a great success story for...
That was an interesting segment. People who commute to work are an exception because it's not very convenient. Like days like today, if you were to bike to work, or even Friday, it's hot.
Yeah.
You have to take a change of clothes with you.
Yeah.
So you need baskets on your bike, and
Yeah.
so you have to plan ahead, and you have to worry about the weather too.
One thing,
Hopefully, when it's time to go home, the weather's still good.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed, all the people I know who are bicycle commuters are slender. So I think it must be a good thing for your physical fitness.
Well, I don't know if I'm an example or not, but
Look, I'd say you qualify as slender.
for me to leave home in the morning and get on my bike, it's just completely exhilarating to head down a hill and get to work that way. So yes, it sort of does a couple things. And there's exercise, although I really don't think about that, you know, and that's probably not my real purpose of you know,
It's like a
commuting
side-
to work. Right.
a side benefit.
It's just a complete enjoyment to be on my bike, to sort of smell the roses, to
Yeah.
look out over the countryside and in town and just see what's happening.
Yeah.
So
I know
I
what you
just
mean.
truly enjoy it.
And especially if you can go on a trail, you're away from the
That's right.
vehicle exhaust.
That's right.
That's a big plus.
Well, it's a safety thing.
Yeah.
Even I hate to ride on Burlington Street.
Uh-huh.
And I figure once I get across Burlington Street there, then it's safe going.
Have you ever had any accidents, or have you been hit by a car?
I
or
have been
close
hit
calls?
by
You
a
have.
car, right.
Tell us about that.
That was on Madison Street, and I was on the sidewalk, and, you know, I guess a bicyclist might argue I should have been in the street. But like I said, sometimes, especially in Burlington, I didn't feel safe on the street. And it's a wide sidewalk there. So I was coming up the sidewalk just across the street from Weeg, and someone was parked there, wanted to turn right, so they were looking left at traffic coming down the hill. And there wasn't any traffic, and so they sort of pulled out, and I happened to be in front at the time.
Did you get hurt?
No, I just got knocked down, so I was
Scary,
lucky.
though.
Yes.
Let's, Adam, we have some footage of some of the bike trails, and while we're talking, we're going to roll some of that footage and flash back and forth to that. Terry's also got some great signs and some maps here that we want to talk about. So just go ahead and start that rolling, Adam, and whenever it's convenient, put it on the screen. And in the meantime, Terry, maybe you want to tell us about these maps and show us some things about the trails. These look like some great maps.
Okay. This is a blow-up, and I think this is the map that was distributed to everyone in Iowa City in their utility bills. And it sort of shows what exists today. And so Napoleon Park is down here, and this is the trail that will take you.
Can we switch over to that shot? There you go.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Napoleon Park is down here.
Right.
And,
We'll have some footage of that trail
Okay.
later. Yeah.
and the segment that you showed, it's hard to see, would be probably right in here someplace.
Right.
And then it's through this trail.
Through the university
Through the
area.
university, that you can get over to Dubuque Street and then,
Around City Park.
right, and then on up to the
On up to
res.
Dubuque Street.
Actually, it's right here, okay? This is, between my fingers here, is something that I think we need to work on.
To complete that area?
Right, this is basically where Mayflower is, the
Uh-huh.
university dorms.
You still got
And
to
this
go
is
on the highway there.
Butler Bridge up here,
Uh-huh.
okay? This is the new Waterworks Park, and there's an extensive trail system through the Waterworks Park.
I hear that's really beautiful.
It
too.
is.
Yeah.
It is. They had to build roads to access the wells, so those become trails. And what they're trying to do there is make it a prairie restoration.
Uh-huh.
And some of that has actually been started. They've applied for a REAP grant to plant more prairie there. And so that probably will happen no matter what over a period of years. So that's going to be absolutely stunning.
Yeah, great.
And
So-
the other thing is that despite some of the concerns about security, and they are concerned about security,
Uh-huh.
and those issues there at that park, they've made it very open. And in fact, they've installed a new parking area.
Open so it's accessible anytime?
Right.
Uh-huh.
There's a parking lot that's done now just across the Iowa River at the Butler Bridge there.
Great.
So it's a trailhead, so you can go there, park and load your bike, and ride through that area.
Great. This footage that we're rolling now is just some of the trail along the Willow Creek Trail. This goes from Willow Creek Park up across Moreland Trek Boulevard and goes out behind City Park. And I went out with the small PATV camera taped to my helmet.
It looks like it was.
So it's a little bit
jerky.
It's a little jerky, but I thought it would give people a vision of how beautiful some of these trails are. It's really a pleasant place to ride, and I also talked to John Yap, and he said this year they're going to be working on completing some of the trail around Coral Ridge Mall and connecting that so you'll be able to go up, connect to the North Liberty Trail eventually.
That's correct. That's called the Clear Creek Trail.
Clear Creek Trail?
Right.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of that exists already. Now,
Can we go back to the map and
I'm trying to get my orientation here.
show us where that is?
Here is the Clear Creek Trail, okay, right here. And
And that
I'm
is-
going to stand up.
Okay, yeah, you got enough cord there?
The Clear Creek Trail is right here, and this is the part that you're talking about. It will be
And that's-
extended there.
and that's
The
to-
mall is actually right in this area here,
Uh-huh.
okay? So, and here is the trail that goes up all the way to North Liberty. And
Now-
that's complete.
Right, and I've been on that trail too, and that is a beautiful trail. It goes into the park in North Liberty. And is that what they call the Coralville Clear Creek Trail Phase 3?
Correct, it is.
And I have a memorandum here from the city of Iowa City from March 4th of this year. The total cost of that project is $270,000. Federal Recreational Trails Grant covers $214,000 of that, just so people will know. Last year, the Iowa City South Sycamore Green Space Trail was $625,000, and that's the one. That's our newest trail segment, I believe, right? Can you show people
Sure,
on
I
the
can.
map? Yeah, I think you
Well-
got a map of that. This is a nice trail. It's it's right
What
down
we're
there.
referring to is right down here, okay? And the soccer fields are right here.
Right, and it starts at Grant Wood School on.
That's correct.
right up
Grant
near-
Wood would be right in here.
Yeah. You have a picture of that one?
This, actually, how am I going to do this?
Here
We'll
you
just
can.
bring
Yeah,
this,
just put it down there. Yeah.
set this one up.
The Sycamore Greenwood Trail. Oh, okay.
So we were talking about Grant Wood is right up here.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So it's sort of across the street where it starts
Uh-huh.
and then goes on down. And what's interesting is sort of these wetlands restoration down here.
Uh-huh.
So this is a variation, okay, on retention pond for runoff. Usually, you see basically a big empty pond.
Uh-huh.
This is a different way to handle runoff, and it's to make these wetlands down here with berms, okay, so the water sort of filters through.
A natural
And then on-
filtration.
Right,
sort of,
and then on
uh-huh.
top of that, along some of these berms, they've built a trail.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've been down there.
Yeah, yeah, I have
Okay,
been.
so there's already, a lot of prairie starting to come up.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of wildlife and especially a lot of birds. So
Yeah.
that should be really interesting this fall when the ducks come through.
Yeah, there was some water there earlier in the summer. Now it's so dry right now.
Right,
It's
I'm not
mostly
sure.
dry. But yeah, I think that's a really intelligent use of the land, and to put your trail along an area like that's for water retention. I think the city deserves a kudos for that design.
Mhm.
And it's quite pretty. There's several trees planted there, and it's going to be quite beautiful. It's really open right now, and it's not. There's no shade, but it's there's a beautiful view from there.
Right.
Too.
One of our goals has always been to try and connect schools and major recreation areas like this,
Uh-huh.
and the parks,
Uh-huh.
okay? And so a good way of doing that is through the trails. So as far as getting connected to the schools, maybe we should bring this one back up,
Okay.
because you mentioned some of what's going on in Coralville
Uh-huh.
and Iowa City. This is West High right here. And this Clear Creek Trail system offers real good connection to West High.
So kids could
And-
ride their bike to school.
Right, and the last little segment here that the city has a commitment to do,
Uh-huh.
and the Willow Creek Trail that you mentioned and showed
Yeah.
that segment goes right behind, actually, right
Right.
behind West High.
Right behind West High. I noticed that, right behind the football field there. And then the trail after that, I think maybe that's on the DV, and if you show that, the trail goes behind West High, and then
There's West High, and
there's
there's Willow Creek.
here's where here's the video of where I was just turning on to the portion that goes behind West High.
Okay.
And it goes clear out to a new housing development that's actually west of West High, and it turns into a cinder track. The asphalt portion, or whatever it is, it's not all
I think what you're
complete yet.
referring to is, there's a lot of development. Well, it's right in here.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, new housing
Well, actually,
development.
right there.
Uh-huh,
Over here is, right across 218 is Hunters Run Park.
uh-huh.
And sometimes you get blocked by, I guess, major, streets.
Uh-huh.
Certainly, we're blocked by 218. We're not sure whether to go over or under.
Oh, so there's going to have to be a bridge for the bike trail?
And as it turns out, probably a bridge over would be cheaper
Uh-huh.
than tunneling under.
Uh-huh,
There's a culvert that goes under 218, which unfortunately, in this case, is very small.
oh, too small for bikes, huh?
It's debatable. It's
Uh-huh.
probably,
There's a
it's
place,
so small, it's very, very, very marginal.
there's a place near Hillcrest, we're going under the pedestrian bridges, where you really have to duck. You
Yep.
could knock yourself
You have
out.
to be careful.
Yeah, quite easily there.
Uh-huh.
So, and yeah, this is on the video screen. This is exactly where, just past West High now, I believe, going through the new housing development. And yeah, there's quite a lot of green space along there. That's really beautiful.
There is connectivity from the Willow Creek Trail up to Roarat Road, where they have some
there is,
wide sidewalks.
out on Raret Road.
Right. And then Irving Weber School is, I'm not sure, it's not shown here, but it would be right in here someplace. Probably about there, about where my finger is.
I would think that would make great sense to a lot of people to have the school's trail accessible, because then when people are going to soccer games or high school speech class or football games, they don't have to have mom and dad take them.
Correct.
They can go just by themselves.
So, I pointed out West High, and we can sort of see what's starting to come together. Over here, we have City High,
Uh-huh.
and
I don't see many trails around
no,
City High.
that's my point.
Oh.
Because City High is in the older part of the,
So it's harder to get right away and such.
Correct,
Uh-huh.
right. So West High is relatively new development, relatively still undeveloped, so there's room to do some things.
That's the time
City
to
High
put
is
the-
going to be harder.
That's the time to put the trails in, isn't it? Is before everything's built.
Yep.
Yeah, and good planning. What else have you got? You got some other maps here to show us?
Well, yes, this is,
Oh, yeah, this is a proposal for, well, I'm sorry, I'll let you tell it. And I
This-
think as we show this, we have some video from this trail right along Napoleon Park too, so we'll kind of, there's
This
on the
looks a little
screen is the head of
flimsy.
the trail, I'm sorry, and there's probably the same map that you have here. This is the map
Right.
that's at Napoleon Park at the head of the trail where you take off. And anyway, go ahead, Terry.
what I have up here now is a concept plan for Sand Lake. To show you where that is, this is Hills Bank up here in the corner. Okay, this is Highway 6. And so the Iowa River Corridor Trail actually comes down right along through here. And at the bottom, a little bit farther down, would be Napoleon Park. Sand Lake right now is sort of an eyesore.
Yeah, right.
So-
Some trash in that lake.
Right.
Some rotted
Right.
iron, yeah.
So what we're trying to do is clean this all up, okay, and make it into a park, and put a little trail along the perimeter of it that would actually connect up with the Iowa River Corridor Trail
Oh, yeah.
down through here.
That's great.
With a
And
little
there's the
bridge.
Iowa River Corridor Trail in your lower right of the screen. It's for you viewers at home.
But this is the kind of role that FIRST is able to play, okay? We can look at this, and we have the vision, I think, of what this could be.
Yes.
So we paid for this concept plan, and then that starts to show everyone what this can look like. And this is much more than a trail. There's a trail component to this, but this can be a catalyst towards development of this whole part of town, okay? And this is an important entry point to Iowa City.
Right, it's somewhat
So-
neglected now, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So if we clean it up, maybe put in some lights, perhaps a fountain, in here, like Coral has done it at, is that North Ridge Park? This could be
It could be
something
beautiful.
quite attractive, and like I said, become a catalyst towards more development down in this area.
Right.
Okay? It would be
Definitely.
a nice place to be. And then you can go out and walk along here.
May I ask, how much did your group have to spend to come up with this plan in this drawing like this?
We've worked with Laura Hawks on many concept plans, and this cost us around $3,000. So,
So you've got a considerable budget to work with, compared to
So-
a lot of groups that I've
Yeah.
been part of. For example, the Iowa City Other News budget is, I think, 0? Is that right? Okay. Yeah, it's up from last year. That's great. I think that is a beautiful vision. I know I biked along that trail quite a bit, and there's a lot of rusting iron and junk, and it would be a beautiful thing. Because the lake, I've seen people ice fishing there in the winter, so I think there's some fish in there. It's not totally dead.
well, a popular fishing spot is right up here where Ralston Creek empties into the Iowa River.
Right,
So
I've
you've
seen
probably
some.
seen lots of cars parked right in here from
Right.
time to time. And so this sort of cleans that up too, okay? Makes it more of a park rather than, I guess, a gravel parking lot.
Right, that would be nice.
So there's some potential.
Great. In a little bit, we'll have some video of that South Sycamore Green Space Trail. I think, Iowa City does a good job in some ways. They've got zoning that requires parking for bicycles when you build a new apartment building. They've got a comprehensive plan that calls for increased use of bicycling and pedestrian. I talked to Karen Cubby. She told me that the long-term goal, as she understood it, was that eventually 10% of Iowa Cityans would be bicycle commuters. And she thought maybe that was somewhere around 3%. You think they'll ever get that high?
Well, I hope so too. But to get there, we need more trails. And so that's of course essential towards that goal.
Uh-huh.
Already bus ridership in Iowa City is among the highest, I think, of any municipality in the state. So
Also, pedestrian commuters are a very high rate in Iowa City.
I noticed a couple years ago, it seemed like bicycle use on campus in particular just exploded. And I think what happened was students finally figured out that it's not like high school anymore. If you want to get around on campus, which is a big place,
Yeah.
probably the quickest and most convenient way to do that is by bicycling.
Yeah,
So that's good to see.
and it's hard to find places
Well-
to park a car in many cases.
Yes, there really isn't any place to park. The ramps fill up. Off-street parking is, you'll have to go way past Summit Street before you can find available off-street parking that's free. So
Right. This is the video from Grant Wood School heading south on the Sycamore
This- okay, that's
Green Space Trail.
right.
South Sycamore Green Space Trail. Do you have a map of that one
I
too?
can put that back up. And
Great.
so that's where you're showing that video right now would be right up here at the very top.
Top of the trail, yeah.
Yeah, and just
Goes
come-
behind some people's houses there.
Right, and coming down.
Quickly, along a nice stand of old trees. It can
The
give you a
trees
little
that you're
shade.
talking about are right in here.
Right. It gives you a little shade if you're out there in the morning. And so I think the lesson here is that if people want more trails in Iowa City, they should join your group. How can they do that?
Well, we'd be happy to receive their contribution.
Do you have a website or?
Actually, we don't.
Okay.
You know, and
Who's-
that's something that in this day and age we should have.
So there's some-
that's definitely on my to-do list.
Somewhere out there's a web-savvy person that should join your group.
Would-
And
we
do your
would welcome
webpage.
that kind of help
Uh-huh.
because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah,
And then we could show these maps,
uh-huh.
make those available.
So how would are you the contact person then? If somebody really wants to get involved, can they call you, or do you have a president of the group, or?
Well, Casey Cook is our president.
Okay,
And has been from when we founded. I'm vice president.
Okay.
And always have been. So either one of us.
how many people have been in the group over the years?
At one time, we had a membership of over 500.
Wow,
that
really?
we could send out.
That's great.
Notices to
Uh-huh.
or what's going on. But
Uh-huh.
to tell you the truth, trails have sort of taken on a life of their own now. I'm just in complete amazement, okay, now of what's happened
Now that
in a
people-
relatively short period of time.
Is that because people can see the trails and they realize how
It's-
great they are?
What's happened is, some things have changed, and I mentioned arterial streets with the sidewalks.
Uh-huh.
That's a matter of design. That's going to happen. When they put in a new sewer or water line,
Uh-huh.
now they tend to think of, when they fill it back in, let's put perhaps a trail on top, if that works. But for
Yeah.
sure, retain surface easement rights
Yeah.
for a trail. Now, when Prairie du Chien is an example of rebuilding a road, and now I think we will see, as a design standard, the wide paved shoulders, 6
Great.
foot on each side.
Uh-huh.
And that has been an exciting thing to see for me, because I live just out past Prairie du Chien on Newport Road. And so I use that all the time.
Uh-huh.
And what I saw is that, yes, you would see bicyclists out there because they wanted to do that Dubuque Street across the res back on Prairie du Chien
Uh-huh.
route. So you'd
Nice
see
loop.
bicyclists out there. Occasionally, you would see a walker or a runner. okay? Now that they put in those paved shoulders, you see a lot more walkers and runners using those paved shoulders.
Uh-huh. Great.
So,
And people need to do that because we're very overweight as a society. Yeah,
so it's been very conducive to getting people out there.
great. Terry, we've got about a minute left or so, and we'll wrap up this segment of the show. Thanks a lot for coming on. I think, what you've told us about FIRST and the group from its inception, and that it has brought about some really meaningful changes in our community, I think it's a great model for other groups. I know, progressive groups, if I may characterize your group as a progressive group, often struggle to see any results, and your group has seen great results, and I appreciate it because I'm out there riding on them.
Well, it took a lot of perseverance.
I'll bet.
It took a long time before things started to happen.
Uh-huh.
And now we made tremendous progress, and things, trail, enhancements, improvements, new trails. It's all going very well in Iowa City.
Yeah,
And I'm very pleased and very happy to see it all.
great. And thanks for your part that you played in
No,
it.
thank
bringing
you.
that about. You bet. You're watching Iowa City's Other News. I'm your host, Greg Thompson. We're going to switch over to a couple other topics now. We have a little piece that I filmed from a straw bale house that's under construction near Mechanicsville. You may have seen Michelle Kenyon a few weeks ago on our show talking about the FCC decision to deregulate ownership of media outlets. Her and her husband, Bennett Brown, are building a straw bale house near Mechanicsville. And it's a straw bale house, but it's built inside of the framework of a metal building, so it's kind of a hybrid. But I have this interview with Bennett Brown and a little footage that I'd like to share with you from the construction of the straw bale house. So go ahead and roll that, Adam.
Well, my name is Bennett Brown. I teach high school in Solon, physics and calculus. And we're building a straw bale house. It's 1,300 square feet plus a basement and a greenhouse. It uses passive solar design, so its heating will be provided by the sun, heating a concrete wall that's inside the greenhouse that will transfer energy to the rest of the space. And there are also big windows on the south side that heat the floor, which will be earthen floor. And the straw bales, the walls are 18 inches thick and insulate very well, so we project that the heating needs will be pretty minimal. People have measured R values as high as R52 for a straw bale wall. That's compared to conventional construction, which is R12, R18. We decided to do straw bale not just because of energy efficiency, but also it's a cheap, renewable material. It's locally available. That we bought our straw from Bob Dvorsky in Johnson County. He's a wheat farmer. This is wheat straw. And also because we like the aesthetics of it. It's a thick wall, and it feels good. It has a good feel to
You're real
it.
quiet, I'll bet.
Sound insulation.
What are you going to use for ceiling insulation?
The ceiling insulation in the above the roof will use fiberglass.
It's solar radiant floor heat.
So you,
The cost is comparable to a 2x6 construction house,
okay.
which is a more expensive but conventional, more expensive than a conventional 2x4 house. It's R18, so cost-wise, it's R18 for conventional construction, a more expensive version of conventional construction versus R27 for straw bale. And the heat that we'll have here, we'll have radiant floor heat on both the first and second floor.
How does that work? How does the heat get from the sun to the floor?
So there'll be a shed out here on the east side of the house, and the shed will have on its roof solar panels that are black panels with tubing through it that water gets pumped through. It's an active solar system, so there's a pump driven by electricity.
Okay.
And that hot water is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gets transferred into, in the winter it'll be 140 degrees, 135 degrees on a sunny day. And when it is sunny, then the pump automatically turns on, pumps that water, circulates it through a tank, a 1,200-gallon tank that is in the basement beneath where we're standing now.
It acts sort of as a reservoir for the
That's a
heat.
heat reservoir, exactly.
Okay.
So during the daytime, that tank will get up to 135 to 150 degrees. And then there's a heat exchanger that exchanges heat into the radiant floor heating system, as well as our domestic hot water.
So you'll have some piping through the floors here?
That's right.
Okay. Wow, that's great. What about, do you figure you'll need any air conditioning?
No.
This will stay at a reasonable temperature in the
Yeah.
summer?
Yeah. Between insulation and ventilation, and it'll be all right.
What do you do about, like, pests? Do you ever get, mice or bugs or something on the straw? I mean,
The
how do you...
detailing is good, which it should be for exterior and interior plaster. There's really no way for
There's no way.
it to get in there and run around. And the stuff is so dense that it's really hard for them to just run rampant. They had to have a better chance in a stud frame wall or something in insulation, because they can.
Welcome back to Iowa City's Other News. I'm Greg Thompson. That was a little footage I shot out at the Straw Bale House in Mechanicsville, or is it Mechanicsburg? I can't remember. Anyway, well, we asked for your opinions and your feedback to our show last time. Adam was on, and Where's the Outrage segment, asking for feedback on our show, and we received a letter, and we also received a phone call from somebody who was commenting on our last show. So we're going to run that now, if you're ready, Adam. And this is our little feedback segment that Adam pre-recorded before the show.
Hello, this is Adam Burke with Iowa City Other News. I'm here in the studio control room at Iowa City Other News, which is
We'll be
taped
done
at
in
Public
12
Access
minutes.
Television in Iowa City. I'm responding to a couple different comments we got from viewers. First of all, thanks for watching. The show plays on Saturdays at 11 a.m. and replays on Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. We got 2 responses this week from last week's show. One is from Charlotte Walker of Iowa City, and she says, I didn't see the whole show today, but when I found it by accident, I hoped that you would talk about local matters. I did hear a bit of the part about JCJJ, but after that, the talk was mostly about national matters. It would be good to have a woman on the program, too. Perhaps you do that on other times. I'd like to see and hear more about local issues, perhaps with issue-related guests. The outrage part could be greater if it was related to local issues. I suppose you could have both. There are plenty of outrages, local, state, national, and international. Thanks for your effort. I'm sure it was much harder to put together than it looks. And Charlotte Walker, Iowa City. Thanks, Charlotte, for watching. Hopefully we can satisfy your need for local news in the upcoming shows that we're going to do. The second comment we got was from a viewer who left a message on our answering machine. The number to call if you'd like to leave a message about this show is 339-7260. And the caller said, noted that I had said that George Bush lied to us to get into war. I think we're going to see Bush's ratings just continue to slip because he lied to us, he got us into an unjust war. There are some serious questions about that man's integrity that I think will come under the scope, hopefully, and people will get off his bandwagon and get on, well, maybe Dennis Kucinich could replace. I wouldn't have any problems with Dennis Kucinich replacing George Bush. It'd be a contrast in administrations, I bet. A little bit, I would say. And the caller had said that George Bush did not lie, that he had merely reported British intelligence, and then he asked if I would prefer living in Iraq. And that's a compelling commentary. Thank you for calling in and giving us some feedback. You or I, caller, don't really have proof that he lied or told the truth. We're not privy to national security information. What I do have is a copy of an article from the Des Moines Register this week that says Colin Powell's thick file against Iraq looks kind of thin 6 months later. And they list various points of his speech and presentation to the United Nations from February 5th and say have other information that was not available maybe at that time. For example, Colin Powell said that Iraq had produced 4 tons of the nerve agent VX. And what he didn't note was that most of the 4 tons were destroyed in the 90s under UN supervision. Before the invasion, Iraqis made a considerable effort to prove they destroyed the rest, doing a chemical analysis, etc. So that he said they produced 4 tons of nerve agent VX is not significant when we also know that they had destroyed it under UN supervision. There are other examples of this, audio tapes that seem to be translated a little bit shakily, hidden documents, anthrax, tons of chemical agents that have not been found yet, nuclear program, new missiles, chemical warheads, etc., etc. This article, I thought, did an interesting job of having a point-counterpoint kind of format where they took some of the allegations by Colin Powell, who is in George Bush's administration and now has certainly seemed to have lost face in his efforts to make the case against Iraq. So the caller who said George Bush did not lie, well, I might even agree with you. I think you have to know that you're lying in order to lie. So maybe he didn't even know the evidence. Maybe he's just presenting information that people give him without thinking critically one way or the other about it. But I will say that it is quite possible, quite likely, that Colin Powell or other members of his administration have lied or presented kind of funky evidence for this war. And I don't think we should have gone to war. Now, do I want to live in Iraq? Well, no, I don't think anyone agrees that Saddam Hussein is a benign or benevolent dictator. And did he need to be removed from power? I'm going to leave that up to you to decide who to remove from power. But he does seem to be one of these kind of gangster dictators who the U.S. has no problem dealing with in other countries, and here we decided to remove him. It seems also that our next, the next country we're probably going to be looking at invading, and I'm sure there'll be evidence presented to support our invasion is Iran, and we will wait to see about those cases for war and cases for invasion. Well, thanks for watching Iowa City Other News. My name is Adam Burke. I'm just responding to some of the viewer commentary. If you'd like to comment or give suggestions or suggest ideas for programs, the number to call is 319-339-7260. You can email us at ic_othernews@yahoo.com, or you can send a letter in care of Iowa City Other News at Public Access TV, 206 Lafayette Street in Iowa City, 52240. Thanks for watching Iowa City Other News.
Well, we're nearing the end of the show. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I'd just like to bring to your attention some events that are coming up in September. This is the Field to Family, where they concentrate on the local grown food and the slow food movement. There are several events that you ought to consider attending that are coming up. On Thursday, September 11th, there's a culinary walk from 5 to 9 p.m. in downtown Iowa City, where you'll enjoy the variety of delightful local food that our 7 participating restaurants offer. There's 7 restaurants that are sponsoring this. Using all local ingredients, chefs in Iowa City will present a variety of delicious plates for your pleasure. Then Friday, September 12th, Politics of Food, a family panel discussion from 6 to 7:30. And that's featuring naturalist Paul Gary Nabhan, director of the Center for Sustainable Environments at Northern Arizona University, Kent Wheely, founder of Seed Savers Exchange, Chef Dave Bird of Iowa City's organic vegetable restaurant Red Avocado, and Slow Food Director Kurt Michael Fries will moderate that discussion. Then there's a book signing and book reading from 8 to 9 on September 12th, Friday. That's at 10 South Gilbert Street. You got to attend cooking demonstrations September 13th on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at Chauncey Swan Park next to the Farmers Market. Sounds interesting. And it says, come to see and taste what our great local chefs can create with locally grown and produced foods. 9 a.m., Etta Birkin of Bon Vivant Culinary Arts in Iowa City. 10 o'clock, David Zagluloff of Cafe Z in Iowa City. And at 11 a.m., Matt Steigerwald of Lincoln Cafe in Mount Vernon. That's free admission. Then there's a tour of Fay Ridge Farms. Also, that's Saturday, September 13th from 1 to 3 p.m. Fay Ridge Farms is at Rapid Creek Road, Iowa City. A local farmer and organic expert, Jeanette Ryan Bush, will open her farm to visitors from 1 to 3 and give a short talk on the connections between the farm and the community. And I've been to Jeanette Bush's Fay Ridge Farm. It's a beautiful place. You ought to all go out there and check things out. It's quite attractive. So we hope to cover some of these events on Iowa City's Other News, maybe in the upcoming months. I'd like to also, relating to fresh and local food, I'd like to show you this poster. This poster shows why it's good to donate to Iowa Shares. Stephen Cantor and I went in and donated money and a raffle, and we won this beautiful poster, Buy Local Food. If you can go back to the one shot, Buy Fresh, Buy Local in Iowa. This is by the Practical Farmers of Iowa, which, if any of you don't know, it's a great organization that promotes sustainable agriculture and it promotes organic agriculture, although not exclusively. They do use, they're open to the use of some chemicals, but they try to be smart about it. And mostly what they try to do is make farming sustainable. Well, that just about brings us to the end of the show. Our guest, Terry Doms, would like to thank him very much for coming down and talking to us today about the Iowa Trail System. Behind the scenes today, Adam Burke has been directing and juggling all the tapes that you've seen. And Elliot Campbell is running graphics for all those graphics that are up right now. Teresa Seeberger, unfortunately, is homesick today. And Teresa, we hope you're feeling better. And this is Iowa City's Other News. Thanks for watching.
Little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside. Little boxes all the same. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, where they were put in boxes and they came out all the same. And there's doctors and lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry, and they all have pretty children, and the children go to school, and the children go to summer camp, and then to the university, where they are put in boxes and they come out all the same. And the boys go into business